Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from finding your faith, dating after divorce, and mental health. Here's your host, who believes in God, but God admits he doesn't believe in him, Tommy Maloney.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks if this is your first time listening. Oh my gosh, you are one lucky soul because, well, all right, let's be honest. I'm the lucky soul because you are here listening to this podcast. I am super excited about this episode. This is going to be a different episode because I was actually interviewed on a podcast that I've mentioned before called Couples Corner, and my good friend Johnny Nomad, who you've heard on this podcast before. Johnny was on episode 59, and we'll put that in the show notes if I remember. I've had a couple glasses of wine tonight. Oh my gosh. I gotta see what the temperature is. So I am in Granger, I think it's Granger, Indiana, which is just outside of South Bend, Indiana. And we are experiencing what you've been reading about and hearing about, that polar vortex. And let me pull up my app, my weather app. And currently, it's negative 14. Negative 14. And let's see, it's going to be down to 15, 16, 17. 5 a.m., we're going to hit negative 20. 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., minus 22. Yeah. Ooh, hold on. Heat wave. By 5 p.m. tomorrow, it'll be negative 4. Yeah. Okay. Oh, good. 30% chance of snow. Friday. Ooh, when I head back home, high on Friday is 22. Looking forward to going back home. And then I go to California. And then I go to Florida. Anyway, what is going on, my friends? I want to say an unexpected, how do I phrase this? Again, it's the wine talking, but, oh, hold on. You know what, I'll mention where I ate dinner tonight. This is the receipt. Tony Sacco's coal oven pizza here in Granger, Indiana. I had a good time. On Wednesdays, by the way, half price wine by the glass and half price wine bottles. I was going to say by the glass. Anyway. So I received an unexpected instant message from not just one of my coworkers, but he's become a good friend. So a shout out to you, Oscar. Oscar, I was shocked when you sent me the instant message today that you listened to this podcast. Oh my gosh, it's so interesting when I didn't expect it. It's just weird. Anyway, so again, if this is your first time tuning in, I like to spread the love. I like to shout out the love to people listening to this podcast. I mean, for those who have listened before, I got a thank you from Scott C., because I gave him a shout out. Anyway, I love doing this. What can I say? And it's going to be a while. Let's see, it's 8:13 Eastern Time right now. And I will be spending part of my night editing this podcast. But anyway, Johnny and his wife, her name is Lovely, and she really was. We had a great time having a conversation about many things. And one of the things we talked about was a bit of a theme that I like to do from time to time, and that's men's mental health, which was sparked by the beginning of this podcast. What you'll hear is when Johnny asked me what's going on, and I have a guest to see. Yeah, you'll hear this. This will be the next podcast episode with Joni and Clint Malarchuk. And if Clint Malarchuk, that name rings a bell, Clint back in the 80s, I think it was, he was a professional goalie for the Buffalo Sabres, and an accident where a skate came up underneath. Clint was a goalie, and a skate came up underneath his mask and cut his jugular vein right there on the ice. And thank God he survived. If you want to Google or YouTube it, you can see, how bad it was. And Clint, thank God, again survived. And even I met Clint and Joni a few years ago, and Clint told the story of that night, and I'll have to, for the podcast for Joni and Clint, I'll have to look in Clint's book to see if I believe he did mention the trainer's name that literally saved his life. And the trainer, luckily, was a combat medvac, I think. I'm not a military person, I can't tell you. But anyway, luckily he was trained in combat, and he knew right away what to do and essentially saved Clint's life. So anyway, so we talk about that. We talk about after divorce, and I learned something when I asked the question, or I posed the question to Lovely about, do women go through the same thing as men, or do they take a break? And here the question was about, some of the men I've coached in the past, they would get divorced and they were on their next relationship, versus taking time, trying to find out who they are, or if they have kids, to make sure they spend quality time with the kids. And I posed the similar question to Lovely. In her inner circle, do women take the time to find themselves, or do they go on to the next relationship? And so you'll get to hear that answer as well. Busy week here in South Bend, Indiana. And I promised you, and I partially broke that promise, but we'll start doing some more podcasts more than once a week. So stay tuned for that. What else? You might have noticed we have some new voiceover stuff from our voice guy, and I was super excited to spend about an hour on the interweb recording those. It brought back some great memories. Our voice guy, he and I worked together many moons ago. He was a morning show talent. I was his morning show producer, aka stunt boy, and we had a great time, and we reminisced a little bit, and it was just a fun time. And we were kind of kidding. When I say kind of, and this will also go into the podcast. So Voice Guy and I were kind of kidding about starting our own show where we would just sit there and talk about our radio stories, which, why not? But there are other things we can talk about. But that was something that Lovely brought up, that she felt that there should be a men's retreat with Johnny and I, and we can bring in some other people. So I want to throw that out to you. Would you attend? Would you attend something where we have, and sorry ladies, we would first pick on the men and see if this is something they would want to do. We're toying around the idea, maybe Colorado. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, something to think about as you listen to this podcast. So again, Johnny was on episode 59. Please go back and listen to that. I had a blast with him, and Johnny and I have just stayed in contact, and essentially he texted me one morning, said, do you have free time to be on our podcast? I said, sure, why not? And so anyway, here we are with Couples Corner, me, Tommy Maloney, as your guest, and there you go. All right. So, as my friend Terry Crews would say, remember, Your success is my success. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. Oh, and if you're in the Midwest, stay warm.
Warning, you're about to listen to a conversation, not between two frogs, two beavers, just Tommy Maloney and his guest. Oh, and by the way, it's not an interview. It's a conversation. People talk between each other. They have a little conversation. It's a him, her, a couple of people just listening in. I hope you enjoy.
And it says we're live.
Yes, as opposed to dead.
Can't stand this guy. Watch. Let me see. Watch this. Let's see what we got here. There we go. I'm on Lovely.
Oh, you rat!
Yeah, I'm on Lovely's account. So
Oh wow.
on her YouTube channel. So we're doing all this.
Her hair is way better than yours anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So is it recording because now we're live or?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Now can you hear Lovely clearly?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And how
I
about
can hear
myself?
everybody.
Yeah.
And I can hear your hair.
Stop it. It says Dio, what's up? Jack, no, okay. So you can hear us good to go. So we're good. That's fantastic. All right, so let's start.
Awesome.
Today, folks. Well, first, welcome to Couples Corner. Is Johnny,
And lovely.
and we have I would say a special guest, but he's not really that special. And we have Mr. Blending the Family himself, podcaster, author, a speaker, Mr. on the stage from TEDx to authoring books of My Dad's Advice at 4:05 a.m. to 25 tips of divorced dads. We have Mr. Tommy Maloney in the house. Yeah, let's welcome Tommy to the podcast. Jeez. Tommy, how you doing?
I'm doing way better than your hair. Look, it's a good thing this is audio, and your listeners cannot see that frock. I love it because I'm jealous. That's what it is. I'm actually jealous because you have more hair than I do, and so I'm wearing a hat right now for all the listeners. I wear a hat because I'm follically challenged.
And you know what? I can probably hook you up with a proper doctor for that.
Oh my goodness.
Get you some transplant from the back of your head to the front of your head.
No, because I'm aerodynamic that way. So,
well, okay, yeah. It makes him smooth when he goes down the slopes in Colorado. You'll see that. So, what have you been up to?
great question. First of all, thank you for the two of you allowing me to be on your podcast. Huge fan, longtime caller, first time listener. And I'm just excited after hearing, oh my gosh, from the first episode to, your latest episodes. I just love Couples Corner. And
Thank you.
Awesome.
you're welcome. For me, what's going on? I can't think right now. It's too early. I'm only on my second cup of coffee. I have my own podcast too, called Blending the Family, the podcast. And I'm very excited. You're getting exclusive here. Okay, you ready?
Okay, we're ready.
Okay.
One of my hockey heroes and his wife will be on my podcast. His name is Clint Malarchuk. And if your listeners have ever heard of that name, Clint's backstory essentially is he almost died playing the sport he loved. He was playing for the Buffalo Sabres back in the 80s, and a skate cut his jugular vein.
Oh, no, wait, I know exactly who you're talking about now.
Yeah, so Clint Malarchuk has gone through heck and back. And because of the relationship with his wife, Joni, a very strong relationship. And I was honored to see them speak here in the Denver, Colorado area a couple years ago. It just proves, and I think the two of you are a prime example of having somebody strong with you, somebody that, the yin and the yang.
and watching and listening to what Clint went through the years of mental health, because it really jacked him up. I mean, there you are, literally bleeding to death in front of 20,000 fans. And he talks about, in his book, he talks about how he went back to the ice too soon. And this is way before, sports psychology, and this is where men were men. And one little skate cut, oh, I'm good, I can get back out there. And so again, talking about having somebody with you as far as your journey goes, and being able to take them with you, but at the same time, just having somebody to rely on. And again, that's why I love listening to the two of you, because you do bounce off each other very well. Now, I will admit to your listeners that, Lovely, you got to tell Johnny to shut up every once in a while.
I do. Trust me, I do.
We still love him.
Yeah, it's like a daily basis. I have to tell him to shut up.
And you see how I'm quiet right now, right? Yeah. Thanks a lot, Tommy, for calling that out. I guess I'm what they call an over speaker.
No, you're just extra, baby.
I'm just extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, she calls me extra, Tommy. She just says I'm just extra dramatic. So she just says I'm just extra, But this is
you have extra hair on top of your head. That's why.
well, yes. Well, yes, absolutely. I have to actually get a haircut today, which Lovely actually does my hair. So
Yes, unfortunately.
yeah, so Lovely's going to be cutting my hair, which is fantastic.
And how much should we charge you? Because it's not enough.
No,
she charged me nothing. It's free.
That's why he lets me do it.
Well, you get what you pay for.
But that's fantastic though, as far as his story.
Yeah.
I actually put up the video so Lovely can see it. And she's looking at it right now.
Yeah.
And you can see here, right? This gushing, and
Oh, wow.
people don't even see what's going on. They're actually after the other person, and he's just there.
And the thing is, the Buffalo, and I can't recall his name, but the Buffalo Sabres trainer was a former military medic.
Oh my goodness.
So that is what really helped save Clint's life, was that the trainer knew what to do in that situation. He stayed calm, which really helped, again, the situation. As long as the trainer stayed calm, everybody else was staying calm. But again, the trainer essentially saved his life.
That's an amazing story. That's
a
testament just to having proper training. No, I don't think a lot of people have proper training of anything, of any kind. Honestly, we tend to always trying to be a jack of all trades of some kind, and having that focus and then having that mindset of just being calm. Because imagine if the trainer wasn't calm, there's no way in the hell Clint was going to stay calm.
No, I agree.
And when you have someone that knows what they're doing, it does kind of soothe you. It calms you down. Because the last thing you want is get him hyped up. His heart rate is pumping. That means more blood's rushing out of his neck.
But I think, like, in the heat of the moment, when you are trained like that, it's like an adrenaline rush, and it just kicks in automatically. And so you just kind of know what to do.
Absolutely. No, that's you're actually right about that, Lovely. So Tommy, you saw him speak. Obviously, it touched you. How did you get him on the podcast? Like, did you go up to him? Have you spoke to him recently? And
yeah, so that's an interesting question, because, like I said, Clint Malarchuk is one of my. I mean, I played hockey. My son plays hockey, and again, knowing Clint's story and hearing it, and matter of fact, for Christmas years ago when Clint's book came out, I got the book for my son, and I said, "Listen, dude, this is not like a happy-go-lucky story. This talks about depression. This talks about, attempting suicide." And so I really wanted my son to understand, as a potential man, that it's okay to ask for help. And that's where Clint's story really resonated with me, because the one thing that I talk a lot about on my podcast is the years of depression I've gone through and suicide attempts I've gone through. And so here's Clint Malarchuk, a former professional athlete, talking about his own depression. And so later on, so the way this seminar worked was Clint had his own workshop, and it was just for men. It was awesome because you really could, nothing against the ladies, lovely, nothing against the ladies, but it was really nice to be freeing, to be able to just be honest, because I went to a Catholic school. And a lot of people, maybe your listeners will go, oh, that's why he's so messed up. And it was the best 4 years of my life, really. But I went to a boys' Catholic school. Once you bring in, a little bit of peer pressure, so bringing girls into the situation, you really can't be yourself. So here we are in this room. Clint is talking about his story, but he just turned around and said, tell me your story. Tell me what your struggles are. And it was wonderful. And then at the end of the event, his wife, Joni, joined him, and they did a presentation about, years of Clint going through PSTD, his battles, still going through depression and suicide. But again, I go back to just seeing his wife, Joni, just being so strong and being understanding that, what he went through. And I was really nervous. I don't, like I said, it's been about 2, maybe 3 years since this event. And I always, in the back of my mind, I wanted them on the podcast. But I was, too afraid because, again, here's one of your heroes.
Right.
And you don't want to take rejection. So Joni and I are connected on LinkedIn, and I just reached out to her. I said, listen, I've been wanting to do this podcast with the two of you. And I explained to her, I really wanted to hear more about her story and how she has to put up with a lot of what Clint was going through. There's a story about him pointing a gun at her. I mean, there's just understandably what he went through. So I really wanted to hear both Clint's story and her story, but I really wanted it for the ladies really to hear how she was able to help Clint get through his moments. And I emailed her and I said, listen, my wife is really good at understanding when I'm going through my dark periods, my downtime, and my wife can really recognize that. And so I wanted to ask her, and we'll be asking her, how do you do it? I mean, I'm going to have to ask Lovely on this. Is it just an innate sense? If you can tell if Johnny's not right, and what is there something that you can tell that he's, possibly not his happy-go-lucky self?
Well, yeah, definitely. Like, there's times like if he's having a moment or like, cause I know him, like normally he's like this funny, outgoing character 24/7, right? He's extra. So when I start seeing little things that he doesn't normally do, it's already an inkling that something's going on. And for me, because Johnny's not very vocal about his feelings, or if he is feeling something, he'll try to keep it inside. But what he doesn't realize is that it seeps to the surface, and I can kind of like I see a difference in him. So that's what lets me know, like, okay, we need to hold on a minute. Let's just figure out what's going on. And I'll pull him to the side and I'll ask him like, what's going on? Talk to me. And then that gives him like the freedom to just try to be open with me at that point.
And Johnny, how do and I'm the same way. Well, I mean, we're men. We don't like to really, which is really sad that we still it's 2019 and we're still not able to just show our feelings or be able to just say to our wives or significant others or even our male friends, I'm not feeling happy. I'm not feeling something.
Right. No, and it's systemic, right? We're trained as little boys not to cry.
Right.
You scrape your knee and you start crying, and another man tells you, "What are you crying for? You're being a little girl." Um,
Rub
you
some
know,
dirt on it.
yeah, that's where we're always told to suppress our feelings as men. So we're trained from a very young age to embody what someone else's idea of a man is, and which is just been kind of just passed down from generation to generation of men, of what men's supposed to be, this manly macho person that's not supposed to cry, not supposed to show any fear. And when you don't show your emotions, we tend to hold that in. That doesn't mean that we don't have emotions. And we have this overthinking of ourselves, and then we're kind of locked in this vessel, saying we can't get out. I can't get help because I'm not supposed to.
But the thing is that I think this is for men in general, because you guys tend to go in that mode of suppressing your feelings. I guess you guys equate that with, because you feel like you're the only one that knows what you're going through, but you don't realize that it shows on the surface. So if someone's connected to you and someone's close to you, of course they're gonna pick up on, like, okay, your vibe is not, it's off, it's not right, there's something going on. So I guess you guys don't realize that for us women, since we are the more emotional creatures, like, we can sense that quickly within, what's going on with you.
No, I agree. I think for men, not that we're not emotional creatures either. We're just taught to we're
Not show it.
to not. It's actually our emotions have been stripped away from us.
Right.
It's a training. It's like almost like being in the military, going to boot camp, right? You go in not knowing anything as a young little man or young woman, and you come out this disciplined person because you're beaten in the head over and over what to do.
Mhm.
And as you're growing up, again, you're told not to play with dolls, not to do this, right? Everything that a girl does, because of an idea of, if my boy does this, he may turn out a certain way. Is that am I right, Tommy?
Yeah, and I still believe, again, being that we're in 2019, that as men we're still living the 1950s, where the expectation is that uh, we go out, we do our job, we come home, we don't talk about our day, we don't talk about our feelings, we don't talk about Bob next door is going through a divorce. We don't talk about that, and I totally agree with you. And to Lovely's point, you're 100% right, of women being more in tuned with their emotions. That it's sad that still men have those issues, that, oh, I'm feeling emotional, oh, I have to repress it down, I can't share it with anybody else. And it's just sad. It's just really, really sad.
Yeah, because for men, when we get together, when we speak to each other, we men usually just rib each other. We'll poke fun of one another. You're really not going to get a conversation from another man about really true deep things unless you're truly best friends. I think once a man finds another male friend that's can be truly his best friend, then they may confide in one another. But when you're amongst other men, it's almost like a peacock. You have to spread your feathers and show
Right.
how big you are and poke your chest out. Either you have to be the funny one, or you have to be the most manly one, or you have to show that you're the most controlling one. So with men, it's always kind of a fight to I'm going to level up above this other man.
Oh, his thing is bigger.
Right. I'm trying to say all that without saying that. Right. Exactly. And so it is a pissing contest for men, where women, it's not. You guys gossip. You guys, tend to get.
No, because women are catty. So
What is what I'm
that's-
saying, bro?
yeah.
You guys are more catty than men are.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing, like I said earlier, is this matter of men. As a young boy, I was taught not to cry. If I scrape my knee, what are you crying for? Man up.
So it's like, it's no different what you do to our kids now. Like,
Yeah.
our youngest is 6,
Yeah.
and anytime he cries, it tells him to man up. Or,
Right, because that's what I'm trained. That's all I know to do. Like, so am I trying to break myself out of it? Absolutely. So there's times that he does cry, and I say, well, what's wrong? And I start asking a question, what's the matter? What's making you cry? And sometimes on the other side of it, I'm like, what are you crying for, man? Because that's
Mhm.
in my head, that's where first thing that comes out of my head. So to try to rewire myself, or for men to try to rewire themselves, they need someone like a Lovely to say, hey, let him cry.
Yeah.
Let him feel something,
Yes. 'Cause-
Well, in the thing that the three of us have in common, coming from the world of blended families.
Yeah.
And for me, I went from, being a single dad where, I was my son's hockey coach. And there were times where to me, it was funny. Even in those moments, he's a goalie, he'd let in a goal and he would just lose it. And this is in the first period. And I'm like, dude, we got 2 more periods to go. And going from that world to when I got remarried to a world of too much estrogen. Too much estrogen.
He must be eating a lot of soybeans.
It was interesting because having to now be a part of young girls' lives when they would have their emotional breakdowns, and I am just standing there like a bowl of jello of like, I have no idea how to help you. I just don't have the tools. As you're standing there crying because you lost a piece of paper that is your whole world. And I'm just like, my defense mechanism has always been, I just shut down or I go hide. And those were those situations where I don't know how to handle these situations with these. Now the oldest is 22 and my other bonus daughter is 17. But during those early days, it was like, oh crap, I gotta go hide under a rock.
Well, yeah, I think I was lucky enough that I had a daughter already, my first child, and I had 2 boys after, so it was different.
But honestly speaking, I think you do better with the girls than you do with the boys because you're more tougher on the boys, but with the girls, you turn like this big ball of mush, and they have you wrapped around their fingers.
They do. I tend to, I guess, really spend more attention to the girls because I want to make sure they can take care of themselves.
Right.
With the boys, I try. I am tough with them. It's weird because I don't like them very much. So I love them. I just don't like them very much. They annoy the shit out of me sometimes. But I don't know why that is. I don't know why I take that route. But 'cause boys are just different. Boys are just kind of like they kind of run through the wall. Their focus isn't there when they're young. And with the girls, their focus is there. So like Savannah, she'll help me in the kitchen. I'm cooking. She wants to know everything about it. Mason could give 2 blips about whatever I'm doing.
No, he's
on
the
his
Prince of Zamunda.
Yeah, exactly. He's the Princess Amunda. So he wants, he wants to just do whatever he's doing with playing his cars or just watching YouTube.
Yeah.
And Savannah will see me in the kitchen, she'll run to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I want to help you." And she knows what a spatula is. She's 6 years old. She already knows how to get me
like
stuff.
That.
It
the
is.
Boys in our household are the lazy ones,
and the girls are the most.
The girls are the go-getters. They're the ones that want to do stuff.
Absolutely. That's why I don't like them.
It's crazy.
Do you like any of your kids, Tommy?
I love my kids, especially when they're not here.
That's what I'm talking about. And people who don't have kids don't understand it. Like, you're raising people. Yes, they come from you, or if not, you're a blended family. You get these additional children, bonus kids are beautiful to have. Yep. But man, when they're not home, it's a change in the environment and atmosphere.
Yeah.
Well, here's the rant I've been on lately between with some of my podcast guests who also are just like the two of you, come from the world of blended family, and that is going from or the difference between a blended family and a traditional family. And a traditional family, they have their own little nucleus. So there's mom, dad, and the kids. They don't. And I hate to generalize this, and I apologize to your listeners who have traditional families, but they don't get it. They don't understand the world of blended families, because not only as the parents not only are we dealing with our own spouse, we have to deal with our former spouses. And
Right.
it's just I've been on this tangent lately because I keep running into, for example, the families on my son's hockey team. They just don't understand what some of the hoops we have to go through for getting our kids from our house. So, for example, I'm an hour away from my son. We are less than 5 minutes away from the girls. Well, the oldest, she has her own place. But the point is, it's not a obviously you two recognize it's not a typical family. We
No,
don't
it's not.
have the same geographic location.
Mhm.
And when you're talking to other parents, they give you the deer in the headlights look when you're telling them, oh yeah, I just drove an hour and a half from the house. And they're like, but where does he go to school? Oh, he goes to school right by his mom's house. And they're still looking at you like, I don't get it. And I and maybe it's me, but I don't like having to explain my life to people. It's just I just want to say to them, okay, here's the deal. We're divorced, we're a blended family, yada yada yada, and just move on. But there are times where we as a blended family, we do need to educate the world of traditional families because when it comes to, for example, birthday parties, and it's your weekend with your child, but there's a birthday party and a sleepover. When I was first divorced, I hated that because now you are taking time away from my son, my time with him. I have, less than 48 hours with him, and now you're taking that valuable time. But once I took a step back and realized it's not about me, it's about our kids and their happiness,
Mhm.
it was okay. But again, it goes back to trying to educate traditional families, and not to say that they have to have their schedule revolve around my schedule, but they should. But I'm kidding. Uh,
Mhm.
but it's a different world coming from a and blended family today means something totally different than growing up with the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Have so many different dynamics, and I love it. I find somebody asked me years ago, do you think blended families are the new norm? And if you look around,
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
divorce rate being so
definitely.
high, a few years ago, that was going to be the outcome regardless. People finally found their soulmates, right?
Mhm.
So you get married the first time, yeah, there's love there, but was it the right person? Really, was it your soulmate? And most likely, probably not. 50% of America was divorced, so that means 50% of families going to be blended families.
Yeah.
And that's what we have now. I think it's a fantastic thing. To your point too, like you have to drive hours to your son. My son also lives an hour away from us as well,
Right.
so that's a 2 hour trip just going back and forth. And to your point, you have less than 48 hours. You
Yep.
pick them up on a Friday night, take them
Mhm.
back on a Sunday morning or Sunday like early afternoon, and then you're done for another
Yeah.
until a following week.
And figuring out the splitting of holidays
Right,
and all of
logistics
that.
wise of holiday, who's going to have who,
Yeah.
if you're going to go on a vacation, can you take this one with you or not?
Yeah.
Um, it does become a logistical nightmare sometimes.
Mhm.
It definitely is a challenge, especially if you don't have communication
Yeah.
or a proper relationship with your former significant other. And that's where the whole goal is just to be civil. Especially for the kids, so then that way the kid can get exactly what they want from both parents, not what the parents can get from
Right.
what they want from themselves.
Mhm.
And no, it is difficult as far as explaining to people. I don't explain nothing to no one. Like honestly, like for me, I just say, hey, this is my son, this is my daughter. If they ask the situation, I say, you know what, this is my website, read my bio, and you can figure everything out from there.
Because pretty much people know our story, like the ones that are we surround ourselves around, they pretty much know our story. But what I can say is that what we've come across a lot is because there's a lot of kids. I biologically have six, he has three. So people just don't understand, like, or they can't wrap their heads around how we can fit that many people in one area. Like that's the thing that we get all the time.
Because they assume we live in a cardboard box. that's one, you know.
Yeah.
But that's not the case, because most of like Tom, you have an oldest one, like you said, is 22. She has her own place, and we have the same thing. We have a 22-year-old. She has her own place as well. So they're not all together at one time, you know. But it's so I kind of want to track back a little bit, Tom, because you also said earlier that you also suffer from depression, and that did your divorce play into that? Were you depressed before your divorce, or were you depressed during your marriage? Like, give me some more detail on that.
So, quite honestly, my depression was at a very, very young age. I want to say probably, let's see, it probably started in fifth grade.
Wow.
I think my first suicide attempt was sixth grade. And I know it sounds heavy, but I laugh about it now, because I took a bottle of children's aspirin. So my joke is that I can never have a heart attack, because that was always things that people recommend. Doctors say, if you're having a heart attack, take some children's aspirin for, at least 2-3 lifetimes. So I'm never going to have a heart attack.
Right.
But, no, not to, I don't want to put any blame, but I want to say somehow my parents' divorce really honestly affected me. And I don't know where the gap is. And it's really, I'm trying to explain as best I can, but I really don't know what triggered it. But there's something there, and I've gone through years of therapy, I'll admit it. But there were times that things would trigger it. I mean, I had, a girlfriend dump me, and maybe it was an abandonment issue. Maybe, oh my gosh, are we doing therapy now? Oh, no. We're brilliant. I think we're having a breakthrough.
That's funny.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was an abandonment issue. And, the gist of that is that my mom actually had to hide the knives in our household after that. After my divorce, I again, it goes back to our conversation. If I think if I was a woman, I think I would be able to be more open with women friends, because again, going back to Lovely's point about, women having that higher emotional IQ. When I went through my divorce, I'll never forget. Because my day job, I do a lot of software training, so I do a lot of traveling. So during that divorce, I was on the road, and I'll never forget. I'm sitting in a room doing some work, and somebody said to me, "Well, Tommy, you're married." And I turned around and held up my left hand. I said, "No," because I had my wedding ring off. And he said, "When did that happen?" I said, "This past Sunday." And he's like, "What? You didn't tell anybody? Do you need to talk about it?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good." Because as a man, I did not want to bring my personal life into the workplace.
Right.
And I call it having my little red wagon.
Right.
We all have our little red wagon of stuff. And I left my little red wagon back home. And so it's probably been, quite honestly, Johnny and Lovely, it's probably been 8 months since I've had any kind of major depression episode. And quite honestly, that's partially because I would have to say I finally have a full-time job that can provide for the family versus not. And so to go back to the original question, yeah, I probably for some reason suffered early depression. And I mean, each day isn't always smelling roses, but it really is fake it till you make it. So when people say to me, "Well, how you doing today?" and I give them my standard answer, "It's a day above ground."
Right. Wow. That's very insightful.
Yeah, it is.
Very insightful. Because everyone goes to some shit, you know? Everybody does. And we do tend to put our best representative up
Hmm.
when times are hard. And I think honestly, like, when I had my divorce, it was tough as well. Um, Not knowing what to do next, not knowing who you are.
I would just start over.
Yeah, having to start over and trying to find a person. And at first, I didn't want to do that at all. I was like, you know what? I ain't trying to get with no one else. Um,
The hell he put me through.
See, that's a great point, and I'm gonna ask Lovely, with your friends that have gone through divorce, have they gone right into a relationship, or have they taken time to, like Johnny was just saying, trying to find themselves?
Um, well, okay, so this is just a little bit about my background. Like, I really don't have too many people that I call close friends. So I'm gonna just speak on one person that because she was actually legally married. So this is just an example that I can pull from. She was the type, and this is, mind you, she was married 3 or 4 times. So
she was successful.
yeah, I think she's on her fourth marriage now. But she kind of was the one that would like break up and get divorced, and then within a few months was in a new relationship, if you kind of get my drift. So I don't know if she ever really gave herself time to like figure out who she was and what she wanted, and to even really think about what was the thing that went wrong within each relationship. So for what I can say is that her husband, now they've been going strong for quite some time, so I think she kind of figured it out now. But I don't know, cuz I really, before even getting with Johnny, like most of my friends were single. They never really, they weren't in like a marriage status. So for me, I guess that's the only example I can bring into play. But I think I can even speak maybe on my own situation, but not being married, but just relationships. I don't think women tend to give themselves enough time to heal so that they can move on. Because I've always been told it's better to what's the word I'm looking for? It's better to get with another one or to get under another one so that you can kind of
over the
forget,
last one.
yeah, get over
Yeah.
the last one. So I think that's what most women kind of go through. Um, so yeah, I don't really have that many experience to speak on about.
No, I think at that point too, I think a lot of us aren't taught. Again, it comes down to being taught, being emotional, laying in emotion. Like what Tommy said, he wasn't going to bring his red wagon to work, which I understand to do the same thing.
Mhm.
As soon as I walk to that front door, my family's left behind. Everything. I'm single. I'm solo. I'm just being the nomad that I am at work.
Right.
And it kind of desensitizes you a lot. Because now you're just focused on work and you really can't be your true self. You got to embody this professional, but that professional is not including the part that he loves the most, which is his family,
Right.
his
'Cause
spouse, or
you
whatever.
tend to separate the two.
Absolutely,
So
because
you
that's
want
what,
to keep
again,
that
that's what you're
separate.
conditioned to do as well.
Right.
Even in corporate America, you are conditioned to say "fuck the family." It's all about these these KPIs and these goals that we have, and that's it. That's all that matters.
Mhm.
And I have to really give applause to the younger generation, the millennials, because they're changing the game with the work environment. Wow, they're bringing their fucking dogs to work, but besides that, they're really about more family oriented. And companies are giving into that, saying, "Hey, we're having a work event, but you can bring your family." And those things have been changing the last couple of years, and I think that's because real people have made real decisions to say, "You know what, you can have both." Of course, no doubt about it, you can't really bring your child to work with you, but jobs now, businesses actually have daycares inside their
Make it more
corporations that
accessible.
make it more accessible. So, you know, the biggest thing for me, I think, Tommy, is, to your point, like, it's comes down to understanding what you want, how you want to get it, and the
Mhm.
length of time that you decide to give yourself to heal.
I think that's the most important thing, is just giving yourself time to heal. Because like even when Johnny and I got together, he was what, it was a year into you being separated because you weren't even divorced at that time. And I was a year being separated from the person that I was with for 11 years. So we knew going in, like we started as a friendship kind of thing, but we knew going in that we had some past things that we had to kind of deal with, and we both weren't ready at the time to like just jump in full fledged into a relationship. So it took us some time. And I think for us, what worked was because it was a long distance relationship. It actually gave us time to focus on getting to know each other mentally and emotionally rather than just physically.
Right.
So I think that's what helped us.
Well, kudos to both of you because, like I said, I am a huge fan of your podcast because I know the two of you have talked about not only like you were just talking about lovely about your long distance relationship, but also that you really don't label, it's Johnny's kids, it's Lovely's kids, it's
Right.
your kids. For us, we started off with removing the word step. We use the word bonus, and
Mhm.
even we're in a very similar situation now. It is, this is, my wife will say this is our son. I'll say these are my daughters. The girls will say this is our annoying brother.
Right.
Things like that, which really does represent family. And so, again, kudos to the two of you where you did realize that getting out of your relationships, that you did need time to figure out who you, number one, who you are and who you want to be,
Mhm.
and then putting in the back burner, all right, when I start dating, who is that person? And it's funny because I was curious asking you, Lovely, because from my world of coaching dads and men, that a lot of times it's the man who once they step out that door after separation, divorce, they're looking for their next Mrs. Wrong. And same thing with some of the women, they are looking for the next Mr. Wrong. And so I think that when it comes to, especially right after uh, a breakup of a marriage or a relationship, to really take a step back and figure out, what do I want to do? I mean, one of my favorite authors is Darren Hardy, and Darren Hardy years ago was the chief editor of Success Magazine. And he talks about, when you build a business, everybody, first thing they talk about is you have to have a business plan. Well, the first thing you should have is a a personal plan. Well, what does that, for example, where do you want to work? Do you want to travel? Do you want to work weekends? Do you want, what's that, how far do you want to drive? And to relate it to what we were just talking about, and that is, well, who am I? What do I really want to do? Do
Right.
I want to stay in this town? Now, if you're a parent, that's a different world. I mean, that's I go back to many years ago on the History Channel, watching the biography of Tim Conway, the actor, the comedian, and he talked about, after his divorce, he bought a house that was like a few doors down from his former wife and kids, so he can still see them on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So that was one of the things, when after my divorce, I wanted to make sure that I was still in the same neighborhood, still close by. And so again, it went back to me taking a step back, going, all right, what do I want to do? Well, the first, what I want to do is build that relationship with my son, especially when you're not in that household. So that's, that was my thinking is, all right, how do I build a relationship when I'm not there? And especially, in the world of being a road warrior, how do I maintain my relationship with my son? And one of the tricks I did was, when he was first learning how to read, I would send him postcards from wherever I was at.
Oh, nice.
And so, again, I had to find my why, and my why was my son.
That's fantastic. That really is. Um, But that shows your sensitive side, right? That shows the side that we kind of suppressed, and you made yourself kind of overcome that. But that's in that postcard. That meant a lot. But you also communicate in a way that was the way your son would receive it, not so much about you and how you want to communicate.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing as well. I think a lot of parents tend to miss is that we want to communicate to our children or even to our significant other, and we tend to communicate the way we want to communicate, but not to the person that's receiving it. And that's a dynamic that has to change. You know. How do I do for you, lovely? Oh boy, you took a deep breath, Tommy.
Uh-oh. You walked into something.
Clarify, like, because I want to make
As far as
sure.
making sure that I communicate with you in a way that you receive, not just the way I want to, how I receive it.
First of all, you're a horrible communicator.
That's what I'm fucking talking about. Let's just be as honest as we can, right here, lovely.
You know why? Because he has these conversations in his head that he thinks he tells me or he informs me of what the conversation was about, but it's happening solely in his head. And then when the topic comes up, he's like, "Oh, remember we talked about it?" I'm like, "No." And that's because he had the conversation in his head, not with me. So I'm clueless. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But yeah, that's why I say he's a horrible communicator.
Come on, you two did that show about the love languages.
Well, yeah, he didn't know what I was talking about.
Still doesn't.
Tommy, I gave him the link to the website. I asked him, did he read it? He's like, "Oh, I didn't get nothing." I resent it. And the only reason he opened it and looked at it was so he didn't have to hear my mouth.
Right, that's absolutely.
Or hoping it was porn.
That too.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, but other than that, like, but no, seriously, when we sit down to actually have like the big talks and talk about what's going on within the family and just informing each other of what we need to inform each other on, he does pretty good with that. Like we actually make sure we take time and set time aside to have those big conversations because, as we mentioned before, like we're passing each other by each day because I'm a night person, he's a day person, and by the time I'm waking up, he's going to sleep.
Right.
So we make sure that we we take that time to actually just sit down and just kind of go through our day to day and just go through what we need to go through to stay on top of everything.
Yeah, I think I like to reference our marriage to like the lighthouse keeper.
The lighthouse keeper.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact there's someone that does take care of the lighthouse during the day, and there's someone that does take care of the lighthouse at night.
So someone on the clock 24/7.
It's someone on the clock 24/7, and we tend to meet up at the perfect time to make sure that we're maintaining the light of the lighthouse.
Right.
And if we don't do that, one of us is definitely failing our job, which is going to fail our family and others as well. So us being together and being that lighthouse keeper together is a weird dynamic, but it works for us. Like it may not work for another family, but it works for us.
It works for us because we just let each other be. Like I don't try to change you, you don't try to change me. And we've taken the good and the bad and we've meshed it all into one and we're accepting of it. So that's why it works.
But she tends to remind me a lot of how much bad I have.
I just tell you you're extra.
So Tommy, what is next for Tommy? Like what's going on for 2019 for you?
Great question. One of my my two biggest goals, something you mentioned in the intro. I have a book called My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. Trying to get that published. The book is based on two things. One, advice I received from my dad when my son Connor was born. It was some messed up advice, and I still love my dad for it. And then it's also based on when I did my TEDx talk. I talked about the advice. My dad essentially said, when I called him the morning of when my son Connor was born, I said, "Hey, congratulations, you're a grandfather." And he said, "Well, do you know what your role is as a parent, as a dad?" And I said, "Well, I hesitated, and I'm thinking, and I'm going, I guess to love my son as best I can. He goes, no, it's to screw him up as best you can. And I'm like, okay. So I took and ran with it. And so when I start thinking about, okay, how can I be, not a great dad, but just a good dad? And so some of the things, like I talked about after the divorce, I did sent my son the postcards, which he still has to this day, and he is 15 years old. The other thing is, uh, when he was in grade school and the teachers were doing field trips and they'd send out an email for chaperones, I was always the first one to respond back. So I always made sure that whatever field trips the kids went on, I was always there. And so, like I said, get the book finally published. I know Johnny and I, to Johnny and Lovely's listeners, Johnny and I talk consistently. One of the things I've been toying around because I do travel a lot is possibly creating a new travel type podcast for the new year. Still playing around with it. Other than that, it's just me being me and trying to be a good husband and dad and podcast host.
It's fun, isn't it? It's fun, isn't it fun? Like, talking to other people and just discovering that you're not alone, that other people have issues too.
Well, and not to sound condescending, but that's why I love listening to your podcast. You are so funny, and I sit there and I'm either in an airport or in an airplane, or I'm going for a walk, or I'm on the treadmill and I'm listening, going, "Hey, here's two people that are as fucked up as my family. I love it."
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, Tommy, we're very honest on our podcast.
We try to
You
be
know,
real as
you
much
know,
as possible.
and no doubt we have our personal stuff that we keep to ourselves.
Really?
Yes, if you don't sound
Well,
like it.
I mean, to a certain degree, because I'm pretty much an open book, and there's nothing that I'm not willing to talk about.
Yeah. Let's just go there.
You know?
The whole PMS episode.
Well,
Hello.
that was his idea, first of all.
You think?
Listen, it's real life. It happens.
If you heard me, I was highly annoyed. I was not in the mood. That was all Johnny's idea.
Hey, I wanted to capture in
Where
the
he was
moments.
even trying to capitalize on it.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm a capitalist of my heart. Yeah.
Guys are ever going to get laid again from
Oh, jeez.
literally lovely lady sitting next to you? After that episode, I'm going.
Yeah, I screwed myself up big time with that one.
Baby.
But you know what? It's probably one of our greatest ones that we got. We
Yeah.
got hits on. That's a lot of listeners.
Because the thing is that you're talking from a real place. You're talking from something that millions of people are going through or experience, but nobody talks about it because
everyone's thinking it.
Not men.
Yeah, everyone's thinking it, but it's just like, hey, I think that's what we challenge ourselves to, Tom, is like, you know what? If we were to have, walls around us or brackets around us and saying, hey, this is what we're going to just exclusively talk about, then we are going to be kind of just with the cattle.
Yeah, no.
We're going to be kind of boring. We're not going to be our true selves. So we said, you know what? We're going to be ourselves. We're just going to go ahead and have conversations and have fun with it, and then see where it goes from there. And if it's successful, great. If it's not, then hey, that's fine too. But we're going into this really with no expectations, just to have fun.
Yeah, pretty much. And 'cause for me, it's like it gives us just more quality time to spend with each other.
Absolutely.
So that's my big take from it. But
Absolutely. And then we get to talk to interesting people, like yourself, which is fantastic. It just shows us that, hey, you know what? People are listening. People are getting something from it.
that's the thing I get amazed about, that there's people actually
Listening
listening.
to us. like holy shit, people are actually listening to us.
Yeah.
Oh, I know the feeling. Believe me. I know the feeling.
So Tommy, and you spoke about the concept of your podcast this year, because you're traveling, and me and Tommy speak a lot. Me and Tommy actually met via IG about over a year ago now. Tommy, believe that?
And we're still talking to each other even after that.
Yeah. So it's we didn't celebrate our anniversary, so I'm kind of mad at you.
Still waiting for the flowers. Babe.
Wait for the flowers. All right, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I got you. So, but you know, and I was on Tommy's podcast. Wow, in late 2017.
Oh wow.
Um,
Has it been that long?
yeah, it's been that long. It was like the end of the year of 2017, as I recall. And I always listened to it because he was just very instrumental in really trying to get me to open up about being a blended family, and talking about how we do our thing, how we do our part, and how we
Right.
met, and how we got the kids to meet. And to see how Tommy has grown, and he's helped me grow a lot this past year of 2018, and to have him as a not just as an he's really, to me, he's a friend. You know, he's really a true friend. Always there whenever I need him, and I try to be for the same thing for him too. He texts me or whatever. I try to respond as quick as possible as I can to make sure he understands. Hey, you know what? You're important to me. And I think when you have people in your life, you have to do that. I got to say, I was very bad at that. And I'm making a conscious effort now in my later years to ensure that, you know what, the friendships that I do have, that those connections are there. And I get it. No, Tommy travels, he's busy. So if I text him, he doesn't get back to me right away. I'm fine with that. I understand. And when he does, he gets back to me and he's fully engaged. And that's what you want. And I'm so happy and proud of him because of this book that he's going to come out with, of the trajectory he's going to put his podcast into with this traveling podcast. I think it's amazing. I think it's something that is needed. It's different. It's just going to kind of shake up the ground a little bit. So very proud of you, dude.
Well,
Very,
thank
very proud of you.
And the one thing, again, this is why I'm still toying with the idea, but something that we've talked about is when you are somebody who travels a lot, and in my situation, I'm alone a lot, and it's okay. I'm okay with being alone. I work with people that at the end of the day, they're like, "Hey, we're going out to dinner here," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going back to the hotel room." That's my comfort zone. And so I think when it comes to men, at times we're not okay with being alone, and it takes a lot for us to admit or to work on being alone. And so that's why um, one of the things I really want to focus on is letting others know, male, female, that it's okay to be alone. It's okay, to have that me time. And so, again, that's again just toying with the idea. But um, I want to say kudos to you too, Johnny. I mean, uh, I love our friendship. I love our relationship, and um, I'm thinking about. I was in Toronto a couple months ago, and I had a Lyft driver who he was probably around maybe around a millennial type age. He was a young guy, and he was taking me back to the hotel, and he said, um, he was telling me that the hotel I was staying at, he and his friends, like once a quarter, will meet up at that hotel, and they'll have a room, and they'll hang out in the bar and just have there's two rules. One is no cell phones, so they have to leave their cell phones either at home or back in the room. And number two, no girlfriends. And so what they do is they have these honest conversations. And I said to this guy, I said, "Can you honestly say to one of your friends, look him in the eye and say, 'I'm battling depression,' or um, even maybe I'm having an eating disorder, or maybe I'm having a alcohol issue. Can you do that?" And he said yes. And I think hopefully what what you and I are trying to attempt in our media world, Johnny, is that we can show other men and our brothers out there that it's okay to admit that we need help, and it's okay to ask for help. But it goes back to our original conversation, and that is, God bless. In your situation, Johnny, you have an awesome partner, and God
Absolutely.
bless my wife, who again, there are days where she has permission to smack me because I probably deserve it. But it goes back to it's okay to ask for help, and I just I guess that'll be my takeaway for your listeners, and I will be stealing this audio and using it for my listeners. Is okay to ask for help, and male, female, it doesn't matter. Young, old, ask for help. It's not a weakness. It's a sign of.
Absolutely. No, that's you hit the nail right in the head right there. It's huge, and I think because we're of the older generation right now going into it, to have younger men hear that from us, it's something that they don't get to hear a lot of.
I see something happening with you too in the near future.
Did you really?
Yes, just by having this conversation, I see you guys putting together some kind of retreat for men where you guys can sit down and have your little talks and, just male bonding kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, that's a brilliant idea.
Yes, she does. That's why I keep her around here. You don't understand. Like, I'm a stupid ass. So to have her, she's.
I see it.
Wow.
Well, okay, you heard it here first. We will.
We're gonna have to plan a retreat some kind, and
retreat.
Yes.
and we'll record it, of course, and have like wow, Tom, I have things going in my head right now because she just said that we're gonna have to offline really get together and kind of, and I would say definitely Colorado because weed is legal over there.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it is. I'm not aware of that.
Snow skiing.
You're
thinking about weed.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful state, so it's I would love to. I haven't gone to Colorado yet.
Okay.
So I've been around the country a lot, and I haven't been.
Well, just to let you know, I'll be in Colorado with you, but I won't.
You'll be with Tommy's wife. Yeah.
Me and her will be shopping.
Yeah. Somebody has to.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I think that's what men don't have a lot of, though.
No, but I see the way. I mean, just because the vibe that you guys have and the conversation, you guys have a lot in common. I see something like you guys putting something together, whether it be a group of guys, I don't know how many guys, but just you guys having a guys' weekend kind of thing.
I like that.
I love it.
Wow.
Lovely idea.
Lovely idea, for real. That's an amazing idea. We're gonna have to on the back end get together, Tommy, and really kind of hammer things out with that and see how that goes.
Well, here I got an idea. Let's throw it out to our listeners as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a gentleman and you feel insecure about your emotions and you feel like you really can't talk to your friends and you feel more comfortable talking to strangers, you can definitely contact me through my DM and IG, Johnny Nomad _. You can also go to Couples Corner _, and hit me up through my DM on Instagram, and from there let us know your interests, and me and Tommy will get together and we will formulate something, and we will get back to you, in a timely manner, of course, what the idea is and how you can participate in that. I think that's fantastic idea of trying to get people to understand how to deal with their emotions, and maybe we invite some special professional guests, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To give professional assistance and advice, because Tommy and I are far from professionals, but we can definitely speak. We have testimonies of our own that we can definitely link up and really have that people know we are normal folks, and our testimonies I think are very strong, and can probably definitely influence someone in the right way. Wow, that's a lovely. You're just amazing.
You're welcome.
You think?
That's fantastic, man. Tommy, as long as I've known you so far, right? You have. I gotta just let people know this because Tommy has helped me out a lot in 2018. Like he helped me self-publish my book Purpose. And because of him writing a second book called Inside Out, a very small one, but it was both put on Amazon, did fairly well. People were interested and people bought it, which is fantastic. And I've written all my life since I was 13, pretty much. And not until I met him is when I had the nerve to really push it out there and put it out there. I always questioned my writing. Lovely always said she thought my storytelling was great, things of that nature.
I'm still waiting.
She's still waiting for my book, Brooklyn Love, which I'm going to put out this year to the end of the year, that people know. I'm going to come up with a campaign for it. I'm 22 chapters in already.
Wow.
It's 7 years old.
Yeah,
Wow.
He's got me waiting for the ending for 7 years.
Yeah, it's an urban romance, And Lovely convinced me to a point where we actually mapped out now it was going to be one book.
No, it's
Now it's going to be a series. Lovely helped me map it out, the series, this past summer, where we're in the pool, because we love being in the pool, and we do our best thinking in the pool, our best talking in the pool. So we were just mapping things out and became a series. I actually have 4 titles, and I actually have a rough draft of ideas of what those 4 books will become. So I would say by the end of this year, the book will be released.
he gets mad at me because I call him Paul Sheldon.
Yes, I hate it. From the movie Misery, I'm like, are you gonna break my ankles with a sledgehammer?
Please don't videotape that.
We probably will, but so yeah, so that's gonna come out, and I want to by saying all that, it's because of Tommy's spark, his nudge, his push, getting me out of my comfort zone and saying, challenge yourself. Fuck what everyone else says about your writing and just get it out there.
Yep.
Really made me get me more motivated to continue on writing, and not so much to make a dollar off of it, but just to say, hey, I can die now and say I'm a published author, I'm a writer.
Yep.
I'm proud of it. And
you definitely should be, Johnny. You definitely should be, and that's the thing is, a lot of people don't. I'm right now, for anybody that loves to read, I'm gonna tell you the book to get right now is by David Goggins, Goggins. David Goggins is a former Navy SEAL. Talk about a badass mofo, David Goggins, and he talks a lot about we don't. As humans, we don't think about our daily wins. And for you, Johnny, that's a win. I mean, that's a huge win, knowing that, you have taken the time to put, pen to paper, so to speak. But we always focus too much on the negative things that go wrong, but we tend to forget the good things that go right. Even as minute as they can be, I think our world will be better off if we remember and not an egotistical thing, just the good things that we've done. And kudos again to you, Lovely, of supporting him and helping him and kicking his ass when he needs it.
Oh, well, I'm all for everything he does. Like he has such a creative mind, and I think what Johnny his problem is that he is always focused on giving of himself to others and doing for others, but he never takes the time to do or give to himself. And I want him to feel fulfilled. I want him to live his dreams. I want him to be able to say at the end of the day, like he checked everything off of his bucket list and he's happy, because the same way I want that for him, he shows that for me. So it's like it goes hand in hand. Like he doesn't never complains about anything I want to do, whether it's going to Michael's for planners or whatever it is. Anything that I have my heart set on, he allows me to do what I want to do. So that's and like I said before, like that's part of what makes us unique and what makes us great, is because we play into the fact that we let each other be who we are, and we're not focusing on trying to change that person. Like I want him just the way he is, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
yeah, wow, you're right in everything you just said. You're absolutely right. I married you for a reason. And if I married you to change you, then the reason is gone.
Yeah.
And the whole premise of being together, no doubt you are going to grow, you're going to change. That's for me to adapt to that, and vice versa.
But I think by us allowing each other to be who we want to be and live in our own spaces, that gives us the room to grow with each other. Like, because we're not on 2 different pages. We're pretty much on the same page in the same chapter, and we're moving along together. It's not like you're progressing and I'm kind of stagnant and I'm in the back. Like we're both making moves at the same time. We both have creative ideas flowing constantly. So we're always feeding off of each other. So I think by us doing that is like we're not leaving anybody behind. We're just right along side by side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. And I think the fact that we are that way, you know, we have gotten stronger. And we feel like we've been married longer. We haven't even hit our 1 year anniversary for marriage
Really,
yet.
it hasn't even been a year
Is that
yet.
March? Is that March?
Yeah,
Yeah.
March 4th.
March 4th is going to be our 1 year anniversary being married. And it's cool. And like Lovely doesn't really celebrate Valentine's either.
I mean, when we were dating, it was cool. We had this conversation. I told him I really wasn't expecting anything for Valentine's this year because while we were dating, to me, it was more of him proving himself kind of thing. But now we're together. We've been together. How many more boxes of chocolate and a stuffed teddy bear are you going to give me? So I think I have enough. I think that, maybe, us going out for dinner and just having a date or whatever is cool. But excuse me, but to physically have to like purchase something for me, no. Now, if you want to buy me a necklace or
Sure.
pair of earrings, I gladly appreciate it.
If it's a Michael's core bag, she'll definitely take it.
But no pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. That's no pressure. And it's funny you said it because when I talk to Tommy and Tommy talks about how his blended family works, it's very similar how we work, and it's kind of like it's very good to hear.
Yeah.
It's very because you do hear some horror stories out there.
Well, yeah, you do. And let me tell you, because I follow me in my Facebook groups. I follow like this stepmom kind of, and the stuff that these women be talking about. It's like, because to me, you go into a relationship, you go into a marriage, you have kids, the person has kids. To me, it's common sense that you're just gonna try to formulate a bond with those kids. But these women, like half of them, they talk about these kids like if they were like animals or like if it was just something that they didn't want to be a part of. And it makes me think like, wow, like there's really some women out there, and then that's where a lot of women get the bad label of not being a good stepmom or whatever, because you have those women that really just don't care for those kids and they make it known, and it's all about their kids.
Wow. Wow. What do you say about that, Tommy?
Well, I think when you are about to go into, let's say, a dating relationship with somebody who has kids, don't come in, it's your way or the highway BS. It's not. You have to let them, it's like a dog. A dog has to trust you. Same thing with kids. They have to trust you. It takes time. And
Yeah.
so that was the biggest life lesson I learned right away was I wasn't going to come in and try and change anybody. I was just going to come in and say, hey, I'm here. I'm here to support you. I love your mom, and we're going to move on from there. But yeah, I've seen too many relationships where somebody comes in and they're like, it's my way. You have to do it this way, and it's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work that way. It's not. And that's anything in life, whether it's business, family, you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to adjust and pivot. And if you don't with the family, especially, then you're going to have a hard life, and it's not going to work out in your relationship at all.
But then again, let's keep in mind the kids are good judges of character, so they're gonna know right off the bat if you're being genuine,
Right,
or if you're just putting up a facade. And like for me particularly, my goal was just to be my normal self. Like I wanted to be the same way with my bonus kids, the way I was with my kids. Like I didn't want to treat them any differently, because I felt like they're human beings and they come from you. If I love you, then that's part of you, so I have to show them the best me that I can show them, and which is just me being me. I didn't want to put up a front or anything, especially because there was our oldest involved, and girls, that could be a more tough situation because they're looking at it like hold on, now you're coming into sacred territory, and so there could have been some backlash between me and her, but we hit it off right away. So it was just, again, they're good judges of character, so I think got to give them more credit than people tend not to give them.
Yeah, I think as adults we tend to not take the lead from the kids, and that's what I think we should take the lead from. What do you think about that, Tommy?
Oh, I agree. And don't force the kids into situations. Let them just naturally either like each other or hate each other. Just don't force anything.
Yep.
No, absolutely. It's insane how you'll see parents do that with their regular kids at the same time too. And I think if you had if you have a tough time raising your own kids, then you're gonna have a tough time trying to get together with bonus kids as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
So that's something again. But I think like if you're screwed up from the beginning before you get married or have children, it's gonna affect your married life as well.
Or if you try to go into the situation where you're trying to buy the kids' love, that's where you're gonna go wrong.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
Wow.
This was a good talk.
This was right. Great conversation, Tommy.
This was awesome. We should do this more often.
Yes.
No, definitely. I think Tommy should be a special once a month guest.
Oh yeah, a recurring guest.
A reoccurring guest. Definitely. So I think that'd be a great idea.
All right.
And if we ever make it to Colorado before this retreat, we're definitely gonna be looking you up.
You two have a place to stay here.
Oh, thank you so much for that, man. We wouldn't want to burden you with
no, we
nine of us.
Come with a tribe.
We come with a tribe. So
no, just the two of you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, because now we'll be pitching a tent in the yard.
Oh, no. Yeah.
That's fantastic. But
this was awesome. I had a blast, and to your listeners, these two, they're going to be worldly famous. You just any day now. Seriously.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
People, listeners, audience, you just heard a discussion with the infamous, the famous, the podcaster, the author.
What's the name of his podcast again?
Blending the Family.
Okay, so you guys need to go and check that out and listen.
Yeah, support Tommy.
Yes.
And definitely watch out for his TEDx. Tommy, what's your website?
blendingthefamily.com.
And he has a video of his TEDx talk on there. Definitely watch it. Tommy's a very funny gentleman.
Yes, I know you got a fan right here. Yeah.
So definitely check him out. And Tommy, we would definitely be in touch because we need to talk about this retreat.
Yes, you do.
Yes, we do.
All right, Tommy, have a good one.
You too. Thanks for letting me hang.
Definitely. All right.
Wait, please leave a rating. Just review something and leave a message. We're not going to call you back. Thank you for listening to Blending the Family, the podcast. And it once again proves that anyone can host a podcast.